we can talk with Mr. Kunraj, one of the commissioners of the Guyana Elections Commission. As we have been reporting, the Elections Commission, the chair of the Elections Commission, this afternoon declared Dr. Irfaan Ali president. He has been sworn in as the ninth president. Mr. Kunraj, just your reaction to everything that has happened today.
Neil, we have wasted 5 months. That is the long and short of this. What is happening here today could have been done 5 months ago, probably saved 1 or 2 days. But that being said, I believe that this country has learned a lesson. First of all, a lesson in patience. And you always remember, I have asked over and over for patience on the part of our citizenry. As late as this morning, I said, when we adjourned, I said that, look, we have waited 5 months, a few more hours wouldn't make a difference. And we have seen the difference that a few hours has made. But that being said, we have seen shenanigans after shenanigans. We have seen dishonesty playing out. We have seen statutory officers in dereliction of their duty. We have seen those said officers committing blatant and rank fraud over the time. We have seen all of this. It has obviously taught us very valuable lessons. Everything happens for a reason. I can't tell you the immediate reason for all that has happened, but I believe that we have to learn from that moving forward.
Mr. Kunraj, things happened rather rapidly today. What changed? What caused this sudden movement towards a declaration?
I wouldn't say it was rapid or sudden, Neil. The pellucidity of the Court of Appeals ruling that we saw on Thursday, and importantly, there was no appeal from that. I believe that by that, the die had been cast, and even today, you saw a last-ditch effort by colleagues on the Commission to talk about, try to rehash and relitigate issues that have already been decided upon definitively by several courts. We've had rulings by the Honorable Chief Justice, several courts. We've had the Caribbean Court of Justice, the Court of Appeal being the last one. So as a consequence, you see all of these things. And that being said, the die had been cast.
The die had been cast before we had meetings after meetings.
That being said, every rope has an end, and I think we had reached the end of our tether. Today as well, there was a request, as it's been publicized today. That request has been sent to the CEO since last Thursday. Finally and thankfully, he acceded to that request. Even after this morning, there was a last-minute attempt to shuffle back and forth. But that has been said. As soon as you saw the walkout from the meeting of my colleague commissioners. It's not unexpected. I got the impression this morning that they wanted to break up the meeting anyhow. But that notwithstanding, we are here. Thankfully, we have taken all the necessary steps to ensure that there is a declaration. That declaration has followed through with the taking of the oath of the office by Dr. Irfaan Ali as the ninth president.
What does this all mean to you personally?
I joked to somebody just now, I'm not sure when I wake up tomorrow morning what will happen. Perhaps my law office will call to say, hello, you have no excuse now about elections and GCOM, get back here. And it, of course, in this COVID-19 times. And, you know, it would be remiss of me if I didn't speak about all of this happening in the time of an international crisis, this pandemic. And it tells you about the rigors. You know, I want to give myself credit for my initial use of that term. It's now commonplace. It's finding its way into the media and the news articles, etc. It is heartless to see that the rigors would put a country through this in such hard times. And I hope that with the turning of this tide today, that we can quickly get into the act, get into the service, of people to rid the suffering or to alleviate or to assuage the suffering of the Guyanese who are afflicted by this pandemic and who are affected financially, socially, all of those areas.
Do you want to hear about the next meeting of the commission soon?
You know, I don't shirk from my constitutional duties. If there's work to be done, there is work to be done, and I think there's a lot of work to be done there. So I wouldn't run away from one. I can't tell you that I'm eagerly looking forward to it, but if it's necessary, yes, certainly.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Says Gunraj there, a commissioner of the Guyana Elections Commission. The three PPP commissioners on GCOM, and they were in the forefront in trying to ensure that a declaration is made from the results of the national vote recount. We are still at the Architown Conference Center where Dr. Ali has just been sworn in as the 9th president, and we want to try to get some reactions from other persons here. So I'm going to try to get a comment from Josh Kanai of the New Movement. Josh, how are you?
I am overwhelmed. I am great. I am doing excellent today, sir.
What do you make of how things unfolded today?
It was a surprise, actually. I was already preparing a great strategy for a long game and for about at least a month more. But thank you, Mr. President, the ex-President Arthur Granger, for doing the most honorable thing on this day, August 2nd, 2020. And I would love to thank the Guyanese people who came out, who supported, who always had our backs. Right?
And the results of these elections are obviously in today. It means that TNM has a place in Parliament. What are you looking forward to in that new role, depending on who gets into Parliament first?
Right. We are looking forward for the best interest of the people to be represented. We want from the very rich to the very poor, to the orphans to the destitute, to be looked into and to be developed. Because that's the potential of a nation, the people and the human resources. We also want, as small parties, to continuously call spade a spade. The youths want this nation to rise to an occasion, to rise to a platform that's compared to none within the Caribbean. And we can do it. And with the newly elected government, they're chanting about inclusive governance, and they're chanting about being togetherness. And that's something I would really love to see for my country as going forward, not only in the spirit of racial divisions, etc., but we want to get rid of that. We want that to be demolished completely. And we look forward to a great, great future for Guyana.
Have you three parties decided on who will go into Parliament?
We will be meeting very soon, the joiner of list that is. We will be meeting very soon, and we will be finalizing those aspects, but at this point in time, we have had just a few minor talks, and as we go ahead, we will definitely let you know, of course.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Josh Kanai of the New Movement. His initial reaction to the final end to this electoral process with the swearing-in of Dr. Irfaan Ali as President of Guyana. Dr. Ali, 40 years old, is the 9th executive President of Guyana. He is currently in a meeting with the security forces and the four persons who he appointed, the Attorney General, Vice President Jagdeo, Gail Teixeira, and Mark Phillips, of course, as Prime Minister.
No. No, he cried.
We are still live at the Artichon Conference Centre. I am currently with Arya Ali, the new First Lady of Guyana. Mrs. Ali, has that title dawned on you that you'll be the First Lady?
I'm trying to come around it, but it was 5 months, so I had enough time to prepare for this.
How do you feel at this moment?
Well, as a proud public servant, it is an honor to serve in the capacity as the First Lady of Guyana. Definitely together with my husband, we are ready to let progress continue.
What can you tell people about Irfaan Ali?
Expect a vibrant and young president. He is going to fulfill his promises with me behind him, of course.
Of course, you have a young baby.
Yes.
Do you foresee challenges with him fulfilling his role as a father and President of Guyana?
No, he's going to be well-rounded. I am certain of that.
Today, in his opening address, he spoke about governing Guyana for all Guyanese. What can you tell us about him that, for us to be sure that that is actually what is going to happen?
It is, because I've seen it. I've been with Irfaan, and we are a couple for quite a while, and I have seen he is a people's person, and we have interacted with so many people. It is nearly impossible for him to discriminate, or he is going to do as he says.
Great. And of course, this is a new role for you, so you're going to take some time to figure out how you'll fit into this role.
It is a transition, and I'm a bit nervous and anxious at the same time, but I'm ready.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're speaking with the First Lady of Guyana, Arya Ali. Her husband, of course, is now the President of Guyana, the ninth executive President of Guyana. Dr. Ali was sworn in maybe about half an hour ago, or an hour thereabouts. And as we have been mentioning, the first appointment Dr. Ali made was that of his Prime Minister, Brigadier Phillips, a career military man. He rose to become Chief of Staff of the Army, and he's now Prime Minister. And then he appointed Anil Nandlall as his Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs. That's a position Mr. Nandlall held before under the PPP. And then he appointed Dr. Bharrat Jagdeo as Vice President. Dr. Jagdeo being, of course, the longest serving President of Guyana. He served as President from 1999 until 2011 when Donald Ramotar ran for the presidency. Dr. Jagdeo could not continue because he had served his full 2 terms plus 2 additional years. He was appointed when Jagan resigned due to ill health in 1999. At that time, he became the youngest president in the Western Hemisphere. Dr. Jagan is expected to take a lead role in this government. He has said that all along. Of course, there have the accusations that he's the one who's going to be pulling the strings behind, that Irfaan Ali is just going to be a puppet. Irfaan Ali has made no bones about the role that he wanted Dr. Jagdeo to play in his government, and he said that it will be that lead role. So he's appointed him as a vice president. We are not certain at this point in time if he will be in charge of particular portfolios in the government or if he will have general oversight. And then Gail Teixeira, who had served as Minister of Health, Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, Minister of Home Affairs, Advisor on Governance, has been appointed as the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs. So those 4 new appointments were made, and they are meeting those 4 persons with Dr. Jagdeo, and he's also meeting at the same time with the heads of the security forces, the army, the police, the fire service and the prison service. And Dr. Jagdeo is going to lead a transition team. We're not sure who in APNU plus AFC will be leading that transition on their side. We suspect it will be Joseph Harman, the former president David Granger, has said that he would respect the declarations made by the Guyana Elections Commission, and he sent out a statement more or less saying that he will do so. He continued with his quarrel over the recount, saying that there were irregularities and anomalies and that they will file an elections petition. The diplomatic community has also responded today to this long overdue swearing in of Dr. Ali as President of Guyana. I'm trying to pull up that statement so I can read it quickly for you. The diplomatic community, of course, has been key in this entire electoral process. They have repeatedly called for the results of the recount to be respected. Before that, they called for the no confidence motion to be respected. And today, the four major diplomatic representatives in Guyana issued a joint statement. The Ambassador of the United States, Sarah Ann Lynch, the British High Commissioner Greg Quinn, the Canadian High Commissioner Lilian Chatterjee, and the Ambassador of the European Union, Fernando Pons Canto, is perhaps the only one we did not see here at the swearing-in ceremony. All of the others were. In a joint statement, they said, "We congratulate the People's Progressive Party on its electoral success and Mohamed Irfaan Ali on his swearing in as President of the Co-operative Republic of Guyana." They thank President David Granger for accepting the results as befitting the dignity of his office. They thanked all political parties, technical advisors, and all observers, international and domestic, who participated in the electoral process. They thanked the GCOM chairwoman, Claudette Singh, for having the courage of her convictions to uphold Guyana's constitution. The four representatives said that they look forward to working with President Ali and his government as it confronts many immediate challenges, including the need to address the social and economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic and the development needs of Guyana's people. They said they also look forward to seeing the government at its outset reach across political divisions to unite Guyanese of all ethnicities, races and regions around meaningful progress on constitutional reform and reconciliation. And finally, they said, as friends of Guyana, we look forward to working with all to continue to support Guyana's development for the benefit of all its people. Just picking up from that last line there, President David Granger, the former president, was invited to the swearing-in of Dr. Irfaan Ali, but he did not show up. Mr. Ali committing himself to working for all Guyanese. We just spoke with his wife, Arya Ali, who will be Guyana's First Lady. Well, she is now Guyana's First Lady, saying the man that Irfaan Ali is will ensure that exactly that happens, that he will govern in the interests of all Guyanese. So we're continuing our live coverage here at the Artichon Conference Centre, where Dr. Mohamed Irfaan Ali, 40 years old, from Lanur on the west coast of Demerara, took the office as the 9th executive president of Guyana, Dr. Ali being the first Muslim president to be sworn into office in Guyana. For those of you who want to note that significance. There was a crowd here at the center, but they have most of them have left. Dr. Ali was in meeting with the four persons that he initially appointed. That meeting seems to have concluded. We can see Anil Nandlall, the Attorney General, back as Attorney General. That's a position he served in before. He's taking a picture with GCOM Commissioner Robeson Ben, who was a former minister in the PPP government. Says Gunraj, one of the commissioners of GCOM representing the PPP, is also there. That is what you can see in your camera. We can see Gail Teixeira also hanging around still at the conference center. She is the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, and she'll have a portfolio of governance as well. Gail Teixeira has been serving in the PPP government since 1992, when she was first appointed Minister of Health, and then she transitioned into other portfolios, the Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, and then Home Affairs Minister. Before the PPP lost the elections in 2015, she was serving in an advisory capacity to President Donald Ramotar. We're continuing our live coverage of the swearing-in of Dr. Irfaan Ali, the 9th Executive President of Guyana. The swearing ceremony took place here at the Artachon Conference Centre. Dr. Ali is still inside, meeting with the head of the security services in Guyana. Outside the Artachon Conference Centre, where the national recount took place, there are scores of persons gathered to have a picture, have a handshake with Dr. Ali. As we've been mentioning, this moment feels a bit surreal for many of the PPP's supporters. They have been anxiously awaiting this moment. It has been 5 months since the elections were held, so they're obviously very excited at this moment. Everyone wanted to see it happen, and so we are awaiting Dr. Irfaan Ali, the President of Guyana, to emerge from the Artachon Conference Centre. If you can see coming out, there is Ambassador Charlene Phoenix. She is the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She was one of the first ones to arrive here for this ceremony. And all the heads of the diplomatic community were here. They have now left this venue. So there are just a couple of people still hanging around here, hoping to see Dr. Ali, to get a picture with him. Perhaps Dr. Ali is the 9th Executive President of Guyana after a 9-month wait that has been more than torture for this nation. And it finally happened today. It all happened very quickly. The Chief Elections Officer was asked to submit his report at 10 this morning when a meeting of the Commission was convened, but he didn't submit that report. He was at the Commission's meeting. The Chair of the Elections Commission asked the President, then, David Granger, to have a conversation with opposition leader Bharrat Jagdeo, as he was then. Mr. Jagdeo did take that call from Mr. Granger, but he said that he would have no talks unless there was, well, until after a declaration was made, and then any talks could happen. So after that conversation, it was indicated again to the Chief Elections Officer to bring in his report at 2 o'clock. He did that shortly after. This time he walked in with the results from the recount. He had submitted many reports before that did not accurately represent the results of these elections. But when he did submit that report just after 2 this afternoon, it was the correct one. It was the one that all parties said were the correct results of these elections. All the international and domestic observers said that those were the results of the elections. The results from the recount represented the will of the people. So the PPP has won the elections, beating APNU plus AFC by over 15,000 votes. Of course, there were other parties in these elections, and collectively, APNU plus AFC lost these elections by over 24,000 votes. It was a stunning defeat for a coalition that came to power riding high on national expectation of this country moving forward with a government of national unity. At least it was a semblance of that. Many middle-class Indo-Guyanese supporters who supported the PPP shifted their votes to APNU plus AC, wanting a change. So this coalition came to power with perhaps the most goodwill than any other government in the history of this country, and they blew it in just a couple of years. Just 3.5 years in, they were defeated in a no-confidence motion in the National Assembly, but refused to give up power. At first they said they would accept the vote in Parliament, which constitutionally would have provided for elections in 3 months. However, they challenged that vote in Parliament. They did not succeed, and they went to the High Court, it went to the Court of Appeal. Then the Caribbean Court of Justice ruled on June 18, 2018. They said the clock started back then, so we should have had elections 3 months after that ruling. That did not happen. When September 18 came, the international community declared Granger's government to be unconstitutional. Just about a month or so after, he then moved to name March 2nd as the date for elections. Of course, preceding that was the appointment of Justice Claudette Singh as the chairman of the Elections Commission after the Caribbean Court of Justice found that President David Granger had acted unconstitutionally and appointed Justice James Patterson to that role. Justice Patterson resigned, paving the way for the appointment of Justice Singh, who was nominated by opposition leader Bharrat Jagdeo in keeping with the constitutional requirements for such appointments. And so after those elections were held on March 2nd. 2 days after, it seemed very clear that the PPP had won these elections from the statements of poll, but APNU claimed that they had won the elections. Then, of course, all the fraud unraveled in the tabulation of the District 4 tabulation when Claremont Mingo, the returning officer, it was found bumped up figures for APNU plus AFC in order to give APNU plus AFC a victory down to the last end. The coalition wanted to rely on that tabulation in order to be sworn in, even though it clearly showed that Mr. Mingo had invented thousands of numbers to give them a victory. Eventually, the Court of Appeal ruled last Thursday that the national vote recount, as was already ruled by the Caribbean Court of Justice and immediately before that the High Court, that the recount was the only results that were on the table and it had to be used to declare the results of those elections. And contrary to what Mr. Lowenfield, the Chief Elections Officer, was saying, that he had some sort of power to determine what the results are independent of the Commission, it was made very known clearly that his role was not a personal one, that he derives his authority from the Commission, and that if they instructed him to do something, he ought to do it. Today, in presenting his report, he did continue to hold on to that claim that he did not believe that the results that he was presenting reflected the will of the people, but it has been said time and again, including in the courts, that that's not his job to determine what votes are valid or what's not. In fact, he is the one who supervised the national vote recount that generated the results, solidified, proved that the PPP had won these elections very clearly. The PPP lost the elections, lost the seat of government in 2015 by less than 5,000 votes. So it was no rocket science for them to be able to get back into office. They put Dr. Bharrat Jagdeo as their general secretary, and he led that party to win back much of the support that it had the last time, certainly from the Berbice sugar belt and the other regions in which sugar estates were closed down, 4 of them, putting thousands of persons out of a job. And so all those issues the PPP campaigned on in order to be re-elected, and they had that successful campaign under Dr. Irfaan Ali, and he was elected president at the elections held on March 2nd. Dr. Ali was shortly sworn in as President of Guyana, and Gail Teixeira, the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs now. We're going to try to get a comment from her. She's going to talk to supporters first. Gail Teixeira, as we've been mentioning, has held some positions in the PPP government, and we're trying to get a comment from her. Mr. Chair, I'm just trying to get a quick comment from you. This is maybe your 4th ministerial appointment with the PPP, if I'm counting correctly. I just want to know, forget that for now, is this moment for you like now?
It is, personally and politically, it gives me so much hope for the future that democracy prevail, and that this was different than the struggles before 92, when we were not as broad-based as now. And as an older generation, I have so much hope and optimism for the future. I saw so many young people, young women and men come out and stand up, courageously for democracy. And the opposition party and the international and the civil society. This movement for democracy was unstoppable. Even though we had many ups and downs, and 5 months it was unstoppable. And so I was very emotional inside, trying to control myself, but I just feel so grateful to our people.
And
We're very special people.
tell us about this portfolio that you've been assigned.
Well, I think it's Parliamentary Affairs and Governance, which I was doing as an advisor. It is now giving it a ministerial authority, which it didn't have before. And so I will, in my discussions with Mr. President, have a clearer idea of all the responsibilities and things he wants me to do and to achieve in this period.
Of course, you've worked with Irfaan Ali before. You were a challenger with him for the presidential nomination of the PPP. What can you tell us about him that would make him a good president?
He's action oriented, and he's not going to dither. You know, he's going to get out there and get things fixed, and we're going to give him all the support he needs to do it, to make sure our people improve, their lives improve, all of our people. In the election campaign and before, you go across the country and see our people suffering. In the COVID, you see people getting into more problems and more suffering. And so a lot of work 24/7 for all of us, and the ministers who will get appointed in a short period, and to make our people's lives better. You know, we can't have people suffer like this, and it's a lot of work, but we can do it. After this 5 months, I think we can do almost anything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Gail Teixeira, the new Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance. She was one of four. Gail Teixeira was one of four appointments made today. The other three being that of the Prime Minister, the Attorney General, and Vice President Bharrat, Jagdeo. So Mr. Jagdeo and the President are still inside holding their meetings. There are still some persons standing by waiting, hoping to have a meeting with him, perhaps a picture very briefly. The heads of the security forces are still inside the building at the moment, and we are going to try to get pictures with him as he emerges from the location. So Dr. Irfaan Ali, the 9th Executive President of Guyana, is emerging from the Artichon Conference Center, where he has just been sworn in. There's a group of persons who have waited patiently outside the venue for him to emerge. Many of these people, of course, who were anxious, waiting for Irfaan Ali to be sworn in, and that moment has happened. It is now behind us. The PPP is back in office. They were elected under the first free and fair elections in Guyana after 28 years in 1992. They spent 23 years in office until they were unseated by a coalition in 2015. 5 years later, they are back in government. The task ahead for Irfaan Ali is no easy one. Of course, he has to lead the country into a period that was very divisive coming out of those elections. For economic sectors, oil and gas, of course, will be the major one. These elections were called the mother of all elections because what it meant was that the party that came to power was the one who was going to have a first go at managing Guyana's oil revenues. At just under $100 million is currently sitting in a bank account in the U.S. Federal Reserve. It cannot be used without a parliamentary approval. So that was for Guyana's first sale of oil, along with royalties, which were sold by ExxonMobil and its partners. So Dr. Ali was emerging from the facility, but he has retreated inside. So we'll stand by just a little bit. He seems to be taking photos and so on with some other persons inside the building. Mark Phillips, the new Prime Minister, is also in the forecourt of the conference center. The Prime Minister of Guyana, Brigadier Mark Phillips, is emerging from the conference center with his wife Mignon and his daughter Maya. So that's the wife of the Prime Minister. Mrs. Phillips, could I have a brief comment from you, please? She has denied us that comment. As she says, the day belongs to her husband, Brigadier Mark Phillips, the new Prime Minister of Guyana. So that was Mignon Phillips and the wife of the Prime Minister, and Maya, his daughter. To take his leave from the Artichon Conference Center, where he has just been sworn in as the 9th Executive President of Guyana. His entourage is getting themselves in order. He's expected to emerge with Vice President Bharrat Jagdeo from the facility. This has been a whirlwind day, you could say. It has been extremely excruciating 5-month wait. This is Dr. Bharrat Jagdeo, appointed Vice President under Irfaan Ali's government. Dr. Ali, of course, saying that he wants Dr. Jagdeo to take a lead role in the government. Mr. Jagdeo, just a quick comment.
I wanted Irfaan, only
I just
Irfaan
wanted
tonight.
a quick comment
I just wanted
from you
Irfaan.
on what this means for you today.
Well, it's quite. I'm drained now. This has been a long fight. A fight that was necessary, but it didn't have to be this way. We could have had a transition to a new government based on the results of the elections 5 months ago and create an atmosphere that would have been conducive to working together, because that was our intention. Notwithstanding the difficulties we face, we still have to find ways of working together. And people are not going to forgive us if we don't ensure that some people who have stolen resources wantonly from the Treasury, they're not brought to account, the people of this country. And I believe that goes for all people, whether they are APNU or PPP. And therefore, we'd have to pursue that accountability in a professional way, objective way, not a vindictive way. Like identifying and because of some act, etc., in the past, saying targeting individuals. So that has to be done, but at the same time, we have to create the conditions so that we can move the country forward, and that requires us working together. And today I spoke with Granger, Mr. Granger, former president, and I expressed that desire, and he too. I think he pointed out that he's willing to engage with no agenda in the future once the declaration is made, and it has been made. Irfaan Ali is now the president, to look at areas where we can work together. And so I'm happy for our country. I'm happy that our fledgling democracy, because we're not an old democracy. We had an extensive period where we were challenged, and then a return to democratic government, and then this huge threat. And we as a people, all of our people, all the political parties, the media, civil society, and the international community stood up for Guyana and for principles. And our democracy today is stronger because we withstood that test. We, the people of Guyana, said we're not prepared to live in a condition of subjugation. We want to live in a free country where we can choose our leaders freely, and that the will of the people would be respected. And so I'm pleased because of that.
You've been appointed vice president. Are you expected to take up a particular portfolio?
We are still discussing this, but there's so many things that need to be done, and we want to get them done swiftly. And therefore, we are working on plans. The president at the inauguration will lay out the plans for the various sectors, but it's no secret about what is required at this point in time. We're suffering from a pandemic, and there seems to be no well thought out strategy how to get us out of it or allow us to cope with it. That has to be among one of the first priorities of the new government. And then clearly we have lost steam. Our economy is under stress, and we have to find a way to get people back to work, to get our businesses making money, and to get help to individuals who need help desperately because they've lost their jobs or something else. Those are immediate priorities. Oil and gas, another one, about how we plan in a bipartisan way, which hopefully we can achieve, how we chart the future of that sector. So I think we have been speaking about this already, and the president would lay out more plans about this in the future. So it should be. We're the next few months, the next year, half a year or so, will be half a year of intense work to take us back onto our growth trajectory. And we're cognizant of how much money has been spent, how much has been squandered, how the borrowing, and the state of the revenue. And it's not very encouraging.
Mr. Jagdeo, you've been Guyana's longest serving president. Why is it important for you to come back in government?
Frankly speaking, I did not want to. I did not throughout the campaign when Irfaan was saying around the country, I want him to be my vice president. I did not give a commitment. Maybe I wouldn't have been had we had an immediate transition. But given the reality of what took place, the pandemic and then the collapse of the economy and this attitude of bullyism, I think the experience I have must be deployed in a formal way at his disposal. In the past, I was more inclined to do it in an informal advisory capacity. But now what is required is immediate line control in some areas to make sure that things get done. And so that is why I've agreed.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Dr. Irfaan Ali emerging from the Art of Chong Conference Center, where he has just been elected the 9th executive president of Guyana. Just behind him, of course, is Prime Minister Mark Phillips. Dr. Ali in conversation at the moment with Sis Gunraj of the Guyana Elections Commission, one of the PPP commissioners. The presidential entourage security detail is getting ready to drive off with Dr. Ali for the first time as president. The president is not using an official car at the moment. The presidential number plate crest has been put on the vehicle that he used before. And so Dr. Ali into this role as president as the days go ahead. So that's Dr. Ali leaving the Artichon Conference Center in the vehicle that he's been driving around with for the longest while. A presidential vehicle did come here, but Dr. Ali is not using that vehicle. He's moving off with the vehicle that he has been in. Didn't even have time to get a proper sheen on that vehicle, just the presidential insignia on that vehicle, and Dr. Ali is off, driving off for the first time as the president of Guyana. The security detail that turned up with the presidential car organized by the protocol office of the Ministry of the Presidency has been left in the parking lot. The president has drove. You can see outside there's a group of supporters who are waiting there. They're waving the PPP flag as Dr. Ali makes his way out of the Artichon Conference Center. So that's it. Dr. Ali has left the compound, and as we've mentioned, he chose not to use the official car that was sent for him. That was the vehicle that was sent for him. The number plate was taken off of that. I don't know what they call it actually, if it's a number plate or what. But the thing that is in front of the vehicle, the presidential insignia, that was taken off and put on the personal vehicle that Dr. Ali was using. And you can see the Presidential Guard Service there standing around with that car. We suppose it will head off very shortly as others continue to leave the venue. The First Lady Arya Ali is going to go get into her vehicle at this point in time. You can see her getting into her vehicle there. It looks brand new. There's, from what we can see, the plastic is still on the seat. First Lady Arya Ali is heading off with her mother and her son, Zaid. Earlier she spoke with us and she said that she was sure Irfaan Ali was going to work very hard. So joining her at the back is her mother and her mother-in-law, the mother of so they are heading off now. That's the First Lady Arya Ali making her way out of the Artichoke Conference Center. Still remaining here is Brigadier Mark Phillips, the Prime Minister. We're going to try to get a reaction from him. Mr. Prime Minister, congratulations. I just want
Today is the President's Day,
but you're also
and
Prime Minister.
I will offer interviews later on. So,
what does this moment mean for you?
no, the protocol dictates that today is the President's Day. I will tell you everything later. You know you could depend on me.
Thank you. Brigadier Mark Phillips, Prime Minister, leaving the Artichoke Conference Center, prefer not to offer a comment, but to await another day. He wants the attention to be on the President. So Brigadier Mark Phillips is making his way now out of the Artichoke Conference Center after President Irfaan Ali made his way out, followed by the First Lady. And now the Prime Minister is heading off from the venue. Brigadier Mark Phillips, the former Army Chief, now appointed Prime Minister of Guyana. He is leaving the venue. You have been watching live coverage of the inauguration of Dr. Irfaan Ali as the 9th Executive President of Guyana. This day has long been coming. Elections were first held on, the elections were held on March 2nd, and 5 months to the date, we now have a new president of Guyana in the person of 40-year-old Dr. Irfaan Ali from Leonora on the west coast of Demerara. He served the People's Progressive Party for many years as Minister of Housing and Water and Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce. Then he was selected by the processes of the PPP to become the presidential candidate, and he beat the APNU's David Granger to win the presidency on March 2nd. And so this has been live coverage on the newsroom from the Artichoke Conference Center. 4 persons were appointed today by Dr. Ali, as we've been mentioning. Mark Phillips, Brigadier Mark Phillips as Prime Minister, Dr. Bharrat Jagdeo as Vice President, Anil Nandlall as Attorney General, and Gail Teixeira as the Minister of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance. Other appointments will be made this week so that Dr. Ali completes his cabinet, and then there will be a more elaborate inauguration ceremony for this government, where he's expected to lay out his plans today for his swearing-in ceremony before Chancellor Unit Cummins. He did offer initial remarks, reaching out to the other side, saying that he will govern in the best interest of Guyana. My name is Neil Marks. This is the Newsroom.